Welcome to the Exploress, time traveling through women's history, one era at a time. I'm Kate Armstrong. Hello, friends. We're taking a short break from our Viking series. Don't worry, it'll be in your ears soon. But first, I'm whipping out one of my favorite bonus episodes from last year about a legendary lady shrouded in layers of glittery mystery. This one's usually behind a paywall, but I'm making it available to you all as a treat. If you love the show, consider becoming a patron. You'll get access to more episodes like this one, including some exclusive Viking content you won't get on the main feed, plus all episodes early and ad-free, contests, behind-the-scenes stuff. It's pretty nice over there. To find out more, just go to my website, theexploresspodcast.com. And now a little shout out to a few of my newest patrons. My new pirate queen, Angela. My newest lady presidents, Sarah and Elizabeth. My warrior queens, MCF, Gail, Christina, Sarah, Amanda, Ika, June, Neve and Sloan, Kate, Jessie, and Alexis. My imperial empresses, Sally, Letitia, Teresa, Samara, and Faye and Whimsy Soapworks. And my lady pharaohs, Lori, Kimberly, Cheryl, Kat, Laura, Bridget, Sophie, Kate, and the Fab Courtneys. "1,001 Nights", the famed collection of stories in which the vizier's daughter agrees to wed a paranoid king who marries a new bride each night only to kill her in the morning. To delay her execution, Scheherazade starts to tell the king a different story every evening, but makes sure to leave it unfinished at sunrise so he'll keep her alive for another day. She weaves tales for 1,001 nights until the king is cured of his paranoia, and he stops marrying and killing innocent women. Ugh, men, stop being terrible. The book is a compilation of tales from various civilizations added together over the centuries, with the earliest stories probably originating in India and Persia, or modern-day Iran. The original text was translated into Arabic in the 8th century, with stories from Iraq, Syria, and Egypt added through the years and into the early modern period until it became the 1001 tales we know today. The history of the stories themselves is, by now, very muddied, but it is believed that the witty, politically savvy Scheherazade may have been based upon a real-life lady, an enslaved concubine named Al-Khayzuran, who eventually became the wife of the Caliph. Her son, the legendary Caliph Harun al-Rashid, and the descriptions of his luxurious court would be immortalized in 1001 Nights. So let's jump aboard our magic carpet and travel back to Arabia and the Abbasid Dynasty to meet Al-Khayzuran. Strap in for a pretty wild tale. First, let's drop down into the timeline of Islamic history, which begins in 570 AD with the birth of Muhammad. We are in the middle of the 8th century, around 750 AD, a little more than 100 years after Prophet Muhammad's death. The entire Arabian Peninsula, which spans from modern-day Morocco to Iraq, is ruled by the Abbasid Caliphate. This is the third caliphate to succeed Muhammad, and was founded by a dynasty descended from his uncle. A caliph, by the way, is the political religious successor to Muhammad, and he is considered the leader of the entire Muslim world. So basically, he is the equivalent of Henry VIII in Tudor England, who served as both the king and the head of the Church of England, because one title just wasn't enough for the old boy. At the time of our story, Caliph al-Mansur is reigning over the Abbasid Empire and ruling from the capital city of Baghdad. The Abbasid Caliphate will last for a pretty long time, from 750 AD to 1258, and be responsible for what is called the Golden Age of Islam. The reign of the Abbasids is one of internal peace and relative stability, thanks in large part to their inclusive politics. The Caliph's court is open to all ethnicities and religious minorities, and many Christians, Jews, and Zoroastrians hold high positions. The Abbasids complete many important architectural projects, including the capital city of Baghdad. The city is built as a circle, fortified by 2 walls. It's the first city of its kind in the Middle East and built on the Tigris River, right at the crossroads of the famous Silk Road. Thus, Baghdad benefits from an influx of trade. Merchants from Europe, China, and Africa all travel through the city, and the large tax revenue from that trade allows the Abbasids to invest in their military, infrastructure, and education. The capital is also renowned for its paper industry. Paper was first introduced by Chinese merchants. Its cutting-edge irrigation and windmill techniques, and its impressive library, known as the Baghdad House of Wisdom. Intellectuals and scholars flock to Baghdad, and great contributions are made here in medicine, mathematics, music, literature, physics, astronomy, and navigation. This place is kind of a cosmopolitan hub, is what I'm saying. So this is the world Al-Khayzuran is born into. We don't know much about her early life, and there are conflicting accounts about when she was born and where she is actually from. Most historians agree that she's born to a Yemeni Arab family and is kidnapped by slave traders as a young girl. Unfortunately, in the ancient world, this isn't that uncommon. Slaves are often bought based on their physical attributes, and Al-Khayzuran is no different. In fact, her given name is a literal description of her body. Khayzuran means reed, and she's often described as slender and graceful. Like most concubines of the period, her real name is unknown. Caliph al-Mansur certainly notices her beauty, and he asks her questions so as to judge her intelligence. When the Caliph asks if she has any living family members, she's smart enough to lie. She tells him no, even though she has a mother and siblings, because Al-Khayzuran knows the Caliph prefers slaves with no male relatives, as they'll present less of a threat to the dynasty. The lie works, and the Caliph finds her witty enough to buy her as a gift for his son, the crown prince. And that's how Al-Khayzuran wins the dubious honor of becoming an enslaved concubine in the harem of al-Mahdi, the future ruler of the Abbasid Empire. Let's talk about harems, because Westerners tend to have a very distorted and Orientalist perception of what the harem actually entailed. The stereotype of the harem, being an inaccessible, erotic space filled with lazy, drug-addled, scantily clad women draped on couches fulfilling every sexual fantasy, is just incorrect. That image was created by Western artists trying to get spicy and sell their art by playing into people's imagined ideas about the exotic East. A lot of these pieces were created by European men who had traveled to the Middle East but were never admitted to a harem. The word harem literally means forbidden area or sanctum, and refers to the women's quarters, or the household spaces in which Islamic women live their lives. This is not a radical notion. In many societies in antiquity, dwellings are separated so that they contain women's quarters and men's quarters. The women's quarters are more private, reserved for family and child rearing, and the men's quarters are more public, places visitors are received and where war and politics are discussed. We saw this in ancient Greece and ancient Rome, though it certainly existed elsewhere. The idea of separate spaces will continue, as we know, for more than 1,000 years, well into the 1900s. Remember the Victorians and their ideas about separate spheres? Caliphs aren't the only men in Islamic society who have harems. The wealthy and elite have them too, but these groups are the only ones that can afford multiple wives and concubines, along with the servants needed to maintain them. For the average person, the concept of the harem is far removed from their daily life. Most men only have one wife. Because, let's be honest, having multiple spouses sounds exhausting. The way in which the harem functions changes between caliphates. But for our purposes, the Abbasid harem is where the caliph's female family members, like his mother and unmarried or widowed sisters, live alongside his wives, concubines, and children. Sounds kinda crowded. And one wonders if that's sometimes a recipe for awkward dinners. The Abbasids specifically segregate the genders in this way to try and prevent women from interfering in politics. I'm happy to report that this strategy fails miserably. According to the men, a woman's only accepted role within the caliphate should be to provide them with entertainment, political alliances through marriage, and lots of babies. Luckily, the women often straight up ignore what is expected. Now, although the women in the harem are expected to spend horizontal tennis time with the patriarch of the household, they are not treated as mere sex objects. Far from it. Most of the women in a harem are well-educated and of noble birth, and many have attended special schools, much like finishing schools, where they learn to read, write, compose poetry, play music, and dance, as well as studying history, religion, literature, philosophy, arithmetic, and science. As a result, these women are some of the most highly educated people in the entire Muslim world, and many become incredibly powerful and wealthy. They often hold high positions at court, they receive allowances, and they run their own businesses. Not necessarily such a bad life. In the sprawling palace of Crown Prince Al-Mahdi, Al-Khayzuran is part of an extensive harem, surrounded by dozens of concubines, servants, and slaves. She arrives at court in 758, and she uses her time well by studying law and the Quran with a group of scholars. She is clearly smart, well-read, and beautiful, and she shares Al-Mahdi's sense of humor, which means she quickly becomes one of his favorites. As her status grows, she rises within the competitive ranks of the harem, a den of complex female relationships, power struggles, and internal hierarchies. Not a place you want to leave your wineglass unattended. As Al-Khayzuran gets more power, she receives her own wing in the harem, complete with private apartments and her own personal servants. Sweet luxury! Al-Khayzuran is clearly ambitious and rather skilled at playing court politics. She knows her influence is tied directly to the favor of the prince, and she curries that favor. Eventually, her status climbs past even Al-Mahdi's wife, Raita, and she gains control over the entire harem, ruling over it like a queen. Raita, who is from a noble family, can't have been best pleased by this. She married Al-Mahdi in 761, 3 years after Al-Khayzuran came to court. Although he has many concubines, Raita is Al-Mahdi's only wife, and she bears him 2 sons, so this demotion has to sting a little. Particularly because Al-Khayzuran, his enslaved concubine, will bear him 3 sons and a daughter. That's part of the reason Al-Khayzuran enjoys such a high position within the harem. Her children. Concubines are rewarded when they start popping out babies. So who is this Al-Mahdi guy, and what is he up to, besides getting women pregnant? According to the sources, Al-Mahdi is tall, handsome, charming, led a military campaign at the ripe young age of 15, and successfully defeated 2 violent uprisings to secure Abbasid control. He was governing the eastern region of the empire when Al-Khayzuran was gifted to him, but when his father dies in 775, he assumes the throne and becomes Caliph himself. One of his father's parting bits of wisdom was as follows.
Take extreme care of the people of Khayzuran, as they are your real supporters, who sacrificed their souls and wealth for the state. I do not think you will follow this advice. Never involve your women in your political affairs. I think you will involve them.
Turns out dear old dad is right on that last part. Al-Mahdi essentially co-rules with Al-Khayzuran, rather than telling her to stay out of his business. And yet, the city of Baghdad thrives during Al-Mahdi's reign. He expands the holy sites of Mecca and Medina, improves the mail service, the army, and the taxation bureaucracy, and he creates a more robust court system. His peaceful rule and inclusive policies attract many immigrants and non-Muslims to Baghdad, and the city becomes very diverse and cosmopolitan. I guess involving women isn't so bad after all? You want to know the coolest thing Al-Mahdi does, though? The moment he becomes caliph, he releases Al-Khayzuran from slavery, and then he marries her, which finally gives her legal rights. Concubines, by the way, don't have any. At a time when caliphs are expected to marry nobility, not their former slave girls, this is a pretty provocative move, and it creates a ton of court drama. Al-Khayzuran doesn't seem to care what the haters say, though. She has far more important matters to attend to now that she has all the power that comes with being wife of the caliph. First, she manages to convince her new husband to make her children, not Rita's, his successors. And he does it. Al-Mahdi is a big family guy, and he loves Al-Khayzuran's daughter so much that he lets her carry around a sword and dress like a boy so she can tag along with him on his road trips. Daddy-daughter time at its finest. It might seem odd that Al-Mahdi is so cool with naming Al-Khayzuran's kids as his heirs and successors, but in ancient Islamic societies, this isn't considered that scandalous. And if we go back to our ancient Egypt episodes, we'll find it happening there too. The children fathered by free men and their concubines, enslaved or not, are considered free, and they're not considered bastards. They're recognized as the legitimate children of their father with equal rights to succession and inheritance. Unlike the Western world, who historically got themselves into a lot of trouble by not doing any of these things. In fact, many of the Umayyad, Abbasid, and Ottoman caliphs and sultans who eventually rule are born to concubines in the royal harem. Now that her position is secure and her children are set to rule an empire, Al-Khayzuran decides it's safe to confess that she might have lied about not having any family. Luckily, Al-Mahdi isn't nearly as paranoid about threats as his father, so he allows his wife to bring her siblings to court, where she helps them gain political appointments and make advantageous marriages. She also decides to use her newfound power for other things, such as intervening on behalf of prisoners, manumitting slaves, setting up drinking fountains along the pilgrimage routes to Mecca, and buying the house in which Prophet Muhammad was born so she could turn it into a mosque. Busy lady. Al-Khayzuran also holds court in the harem, where women and men, including officials, nobles, and military officers, all petition her to ask for favors. It's quickly understood that, in order to get to the caliph, you have to go through Al-Khayzuran first. She gains so much power that she doesn't even have to venture out to the men's quarters to do business. The men have to bring their wars and politics into the women's quarters to discuss them at her leisure. That's right, bow down, boys. When Al-Khayzuran isn't holding court, she's running a number of businesses and factories through agents that report directly to her. She proves to be an exceptional businesswoman. At the time of her death in 789, her annual income is 160 million dirhams, about half of the entire state's revenue. The only person in the Muslim world who is richer is her husband. Speaking of the caliph, Al-Khayzuran is not afraid to confront him on political issues, and she does it often, though she does know where to draw the line. One source mentions how, after they get into a shouting match, Al-Mahdi's advisor has to mediate to smooth things over. The caliph is so grateful to him for helping patch things up with his wife that he gives the man 2,000 dinars. Al-Khayzuran is grateful as well and gives him 1,990 dinars, 10 dinars less, just to show that she's not competing with the caliph's gift, although everyone knows she easily could have. Al-Mahdi dies unexpectedly in 785 in rather scandalous fashion. He is accidentally poisoned by a jealous concubine, though she was actually trying to kill one of her rivals in the harem. It is Al-Khayzuran who ensures the peaceful transition of power to her eldest son, Musa al-Hadi. Al-Hadi is not in Baghdad when his father passes, so while her son races back to assure his throne, Al-Khayzuran holds his spot, as it were, in what I'm sure is the most stressful game of musical chairs ever. She rallies her allies, takes control of the government, stops a military mutiny, and has the court officials swear fealty to her son in absentia until he can get back. No big deal. You would think, given that his mother is solely responsible for handing him the throne, that al-Hadi would be a grateful little boy. Alas, he is not. Does this remind us of Jerusalem's Baldwin III at all? Or Egyptian pharaoh Hatshepsut's adopted son? Come on, boys. He hates how much power and control his mother has, and grows upset as she continues ruling the empire from behind the scenes without consulting him. He tries his best to limit her power, confine her to the harem, and humiliate her, even threatening to execute the people who petition her for favors.
Wait a moment and listen well to my words,
he decrees.
Whoever from among my entourage, my generals, my servants, comes to you with a petition will have his head cut off and his property confiscated. What is the meaning of those retinues that throng around your door every day? Don't you have a spindle to keep you busy? A Quran for praying? A residence in which to hide from those besieging you? Watch yourself, and woe to you if you open your mouth in favor of anyone at all.
Pretty bold of you to sass Mom like that, bro. When al-Hadi's verbal smackdowns don't prevent Al-Khayzuran from continuing to dominate the political scene, he goes so far as to try to poison her food. This attempt fails, and after she discovers the plot, she pays him back by having him suffocated in his sleep. Look, you can't say the boy didn't have it coming. The lesson here? Don't try to poison your mama. Harun al-Rashid, Al-Khayzuran's younger son, and her favorite, assumes the throne after the death of his brother. Turns out he's all too happy to share his power with Mom, and he will go on to become one of the greatest and most famous caliphs in history, ushering in what is widely regarded as the golden age of Islam. Looks like Mother knew best all along. The character of King Shahryar in 1001 Nights is actually based on him, with many of the stories set in his glittering court. And he is such a stand-up guy that he gifts Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne his infamous white elephant, Abul Abbas. When Al-Khayzuran dies, he is so grief-stricken that he helps carry his mother's bier, walking barefoot through the mud to do so. Al-Khayzuran began her life as a slave, her body sold to a stranger. She ended that life a queen mother, richer and more powerful than any woman around her, her body literally carried by a caliph to its place of rest. She managed to capture the heart of the ruler of the Muslim world, who broke all social conventions to free and marry her. Her political savvy, ambition, and intelligence amassed her great wealth and also power. Her face ended up on coins, her name was on palaces, and her sons were on the throne. I call that a feat well worthy of Scheherazade. Catch you next time. If you like The Exploress, and I hope you do, tell a friend about it, leave a review wherever you listen, or shoot me an email over on my website and say hi. I always love hearing from you. Thanks times infinity to Carly Quinn for her help in researching and writing this episode. Thanks to Joshua Stackhouse for my theme music and Mr. Exploress for my logo.